Hello, and welcome to Conversations with the Pros. I'm Janessa Peno, real estate agent with Shore West Realtors in Southeast Wisconsin, and today's episode is in regards to springtime and your home. I talk with a local inspection company, and we go through a top to bottom view of your home and the things that you should be looking out for now that we're approaching warmer weather and summertime. Today's guest is Mike Marzion from Wisconsin Property Inspections. Welcome to Conversations with the Pros.
Good morning, Janessa.
Hi. Let's talk a little bit about springtime and what we should be doing as homeowners or potential homeowners in relations to our home.
Okay. Well, springtime's a really good time to just do a quick little assessment. Let's talk about the outside of your home to start with. Assessment or evaluation outside of your house. And you don't have to be a pro to do this. All you should do is you should take some time out of your day, maybe on a weekend or whenever you have some time, and just walk around your house and kind of do a top-down look at all the parts of your house and see if anything's kind of out of place. Oftentimes when we do an inspection, the first thing we do is we just go outside of the house and we walk around the outside and we look at the chimney, the siding, the gutters. The chimney, the roof, the gutters, the siding, and then the downspouts. And it's kind of a top-down approach. So it's spring, good time to get outside. Go outside, and if you have some binoculars, you can bring them and use them. And if you can't, most of the times you can see a lot of this stuff without that. And just look at your chimney. You don't have to be a chimney expert to know whether or not it looks great or not. If it looks like it's in good shape, that's a pretty good start. Don't worry about it for now. If you start seeing pieces of bricks fall off and laying on your roof, or visible cracking, or other things that just look out of place, you might want to call a chimney person. Then we evaluate the roof. And when you're looking at a roof, it's not that hard. You're looking for missing shingles, cracked shingles, maybe shingles lying on your lawn. Anything that looks out of place. Roofs have a symmetry to them. They kind of like flow. They look good when they're in good shape. And if you start seeing waviness, bumpiness, shingles lifting or shingles cracking or falling or doing anything they shouldn't be doing, it's a real strong indication you need either repair or replacement. And the only person that would know that would be a roofing expert. So if you saw any of that, this is the time of the year to find it and to try to get somebody out there to either fix it or replace it. Gutters. This is the best time of the year to start out with clean gutters. And if you're not comfortable climbing on a ladder or cleaning your gutters, you probably should pay someone because falling off your ladder is expensive and hurtful. And we don't want to do that. But your gutters should be clean because they're a really big part of managing all of the water on your house. All of the water that hits your house gets into your gutters, where it goes downspouts and out to your extensions, where it keeps the water from your basement. And when they're full of leaves, they can't drain properly. And if you left leaves in there from last fall, they're just going to sit in those gutters and rot. So this is a great time to clean them out. And if you don't like that project, you might want to consider getting gutter guards or something that keeps the leaves out. While you're doing it, walk around your house, just look at your siding, the exteriors of your windows and your doors and everything. And again, look for cracked siding, things that are falling down, things that are faded, things that are just not looking right. It's just a good time to do a walk around of your house. And then the last thing close to your house that we should look at is the grading or the dirt as it approaches your house. Mulch is not grading. Mulch does not stop water from getting into your basement. Dirt does. So your dirt should be going away from your house for about 8 feet. There's a camera. About 8 feet at a good angle so that when water does fall next to your house, it flows away and doesn't get down into your basement. And make sure that you have those extensions on your downspouts. That quick walk around, and it shouldn't take more than 15 or 20 minutes, can really give you a head start on the maintenance and the care of the outside of your house for this whole summer. I mean, twice a year is when we recommend doing it. Do it in spring and fall. Well, we're in spring. While you're at it, look at your AC unit that's on the outside of the house. Make sure you don't have any covers on it, and make sure that no plants are growing over on it or anything else. It should be free because the way that AC works is that the air flows through it to take the heat away, and you want it to be unobstructed. And the last thing is your trees and your shrubs. Trees and shrubs shouldn't be overhanging a house, and they definitely shouldn't be touching your house because the action of wind will actually abrade your house, either the siding or the roof. It can ruin your roof, it can ruin your siding. So while you're walking around, you see any kind of brush, shrubbery, trees that are rubbing against your house, they should be trimmed back. And that would be a really good time. This is a good time of the year to do that, to get a handle on it. And then keep it that way for the rest of the year. But every spring would be a good idea to just do a quick walk around your house and see what has changed since last winter. And if you make this a habit, you'll get to know your house a lot better, and you'll actually see things out of place long before normal people would, because you're like, oh, it's never been like that before. And then if you find something, you just call an expert. You call somebody that repairs that specific item, your AC, your siding, your roof, your chimney, or whatever it may be.
So the air conditioner, I can say from previous experience, where the exhaust from our dryer is nearby. So there's lint around there. So cleaning that out was something that was necessary on a fairly, annual basis. But also on top of that, when we would turn it on, sometimes the hose that's in the basement would be off, and therefore I would get water, it wouldn't be near the drain. And
right,
so
the condensate, right.
Moved, right? When you're lugging in the salt bags into your, water softener or whatever, things can end up getting bumped. So those, I know for sure, are two of our things that we always have to take a look at.
And you can always hose those exterior AC units down, the big box that's the outside of your house. You can hose them down, and they're meant to be in the rain. They are meant to be outside. And that's a good way to clean them out. Your hose faucets, while we were talking about leaks, when you turn your hose faucets back on for this year, pay attention to whether or not they're leaking. Because if they froze over the winter, they will leak in spring. And if they leak in spring, they're leaking right next to your foundation. And I've seen many basements have water coming through the basement walls now because the outside hose faucet is continually leaking. And that means it has to be replaced or repaired. Some people just turn them back off until they can get them repaired or replaced. But it's a good time to catch that, because if they did freeze over the winter, this is the time you'll find it out.
Another thing in regards to the roof that I have seen, not necessarily on my home, but on others, if you see those tiny little black pellets everywhere, that usually means that it's a runoff from the shingles, correct?
Yeah, it's granulization. It's little stones. And its role is to protect your shingle from the UV rays, from the sun. And then as shingles age, it's one of the strongest indications of a roof as it gets later in its life, is it starts losing all the granulization. And therefore, it accelerates the deterioration of your roof. So if you're cleaning your gutters, or if you see a lot of that flushing out of your downspout extensions, it's a good indication your roof is nearing the end of its life. Now, there's one exception to that, and that is a brand new roof. Brand new roofs do an initial shed of those granulization from the installation process. Guys are up there pounding on their roof and moving all the shingles around and flexing on it, and that shakes those pieces off. So when we see the gutters full of granulization, roof pebbles, we know it's either a very new roof or it's a roof nearing its end. But very seldom in the middle of the roof's life will that happen, barring like a hailstorm. And, if you're looking at your roof and you see a bunch of things that look like bruises, and they look like shingle bruises, like where a hail piece hit a roof and bumped off all of the granules just in like the size of a quarter or a $50, that's hail damage. And that's a completely different thing than what we're talking about. Yeah, the shingles are damaged. You should probably call your homeowner's insurance, because that would be covered under many policies. But when you see a roof that's got a bunch of pock marks on it, that means hail's hit your house. Now, I don't think we've had a hailstorm here, at least generally, for a year or two. But it's something to know. But you're right, those granulization, when you see it in your gutters, it's a sign your roof is getting old.
So you talked a little bit about trees, and certainly, close to the house is one thing. And I guess I've never really thought about, like, as it's continuing to rub against your house, that's an issue. It makes sense. I just hadn't thought about it. But certainly those that are like hanging over the house, can we go a little bit deeper as to why those are issues?
Well, when you're overhanging a house, they are not allowing an area to dry completely. Water intrusion is a big part of the damage of a lot of houses, whether it's roof, through the siding, through the basement, whatever. A big part of our job is find your water intrusion. But another important part is letting things dry out. And if you have trees that overhang your house or a very wooded lot, you're going to find algae, lichen, growth on your roof. And that will also accelerate the deterioration of your roof. That tree is dropping a bunch of microscopic parts on your roof always. And those same stones we talk about are holding them in place. And then it stays moist, and that becomes food for the algae to grow. So we don't recommend pressure washing your roof ever. It's not one of those things you want to do, because what you do is you blast those little stones right off of your roof. But if you trim those back, the sunlight and airflow will help dry out your roof, and it will give it a longer life.
So this would be another reason why, if you've got leaves on your roof that have fallen, that's another reason to get them off, because I would assume with moisture that they'll stick better to the roof, and then therefore also cause those issues too, right?
Right. So they do more than just staining, they shorten the life of the roof. And it's just a good idea to get it done. I just want to say, if you're not comfortable climbing ladders or not comfortable trimming trees, if you haven't done it before, it's probably best left to somebody that's a pro. I climb ladders every single day, and I'm still very cautious on them because you can get hurt. But when we talk about like trimming a tree, it's generally not untrained homeowner kind of task, unless it's ground level and a shrub and using a shrub trimmer or something. But if you're talking trees, you should be careful, because the last thing you want to do is drop that stuff on your house.
Right. Yeah. Last thing you want is the limb to come through your roof. Right.
I mean, that's a whole start to a new problem.
Totally different problem. But to that point, though, as we're in May, and weather's going to get more volatile as we continue to get warmer. So, high winds, trees hit by lightning, those kinds of things can have an effect on, especially if you've got something that's overhanging the house, because if that ends up getting struck by lightning, where's it going to land? Most likely on your roof. Right. And certainly that can cause lots of issues.
And the tree roots, the right trees, and I mean like big hardwoods, tree roots can really hurt a foundation. So if you're getting tree roots that close to your house, it's probably something to have a professional look at and determine if it's really what you want to have happening. Because trees, I mean, especially large ones and some of the sturdier ones, they can really hurt your house underneath the ground where you can't even see it. So it's something else to be evaluated, and a tree expert can really look at it and get a real good idea of what's happening with the tree and give you some good advice on whether or not it should be removed, trimmed back, or whatever. But if they're so close that they're overhanging your house, they're pretty close to your foundation also.
That's a great point. Anything else from a water intrusion perspective? Maybe if there is flooding, what are some of the things that a homeowner could do to maybe mitigate water coming into their home?
Well, gutters, downspouts, and extensions, coupled with good grading. So now we're talking clean your gutters out so the water flows through them. The downspouts take them to the ground down, and the extensions take them 8 feet or so away from your foundation. And we always want to try to drive that water downhill from the house, away from the house. And then most importantly, having the grading around your house proper will make a huge difference in your basement's ability to handle water, because you're reducing the water that it has to handle. And even old basements, ones that don't have sump pumps and stuff, can manage a certain degree of water. They start having problems with water intrusion when it becomes more water than they can handle. So our whole focus is always try to minimize the water so the basement can always handle it, or always manage that amount of water. Those are easy tasks and good tasks. I had a lady out in Pewaukee. I had inspected her house, and there was some water damage problems happening in the basement. Water was coming through the walls, and she called a foundation guy, and he said, "You need foundation repairs at a tune of $20,000." And she called me. She was very angry because she thought that maybe I'd missed something. And I said, "Well, call a landscaper and let's talk about it," because I had taken pictures of the grading in her house, and I pointed out in the report that it was an issue. And it cost her $1,100, and all of the basement issues dried up. It solved itself with $1,100 of grading. So she paid a landscape company to come in with dirt, remember, not mulch, dirt, and filled in her house and sloped it all away. And it was directing the water away. And then they just put extensions on her existing downspouts. And she called me up and she's like, "That was the greatest thing ever. I mean, you saved a tremendous amount of money, and I got the outcome that I really wanted and needed, which was a dry basement." So I always tell people, fix it at the smallest possible level. Try it. And you might be surprised at how good a grading job with just downspout extensions will do in directing water away from your foundation.
One last question, this is sort of on topic, but a little bit different. As I'm going through homes with buyers, a lot of them are obviously really concerned about the structural issues especially given today's market with like the no inspections, contingencies, and that kind of thing, or the way that people have been writing offers, I should say, lately. Right. That being said, as we continue to get into more of a rainy season or a wetter time frame, are there things that they could notice in a basement that would indicate that there is a water issue? What are some of those things that they should be looking for, or as myself as an agent should be looking for them? Well,
water can't enter a house without leaving a mark some way, somehow. However, you can cover some of those marks up during the selling process, making it very difficult to see. But when you walk into a closed basement, and I mean like a basement that doesn't have open windows or doors or anything, you should be able to smell and feel it to start with. Your nose is really capable of smelling mold and mildew. The feel you get in a basement that has water issues versus a very dry basement. And then I look at all of the belongings people have in their basements, because people that put really expensive things in their basement on the basement floor are indicating they really trust it. You know, if the people have lived in that house 25 years and they have cardboard boxes on the basement floor all over the place, and you know they've been there for a long time, it's apparent, you know they really trust that basement. And then when you go down there and see everything up on pallets or wood platforms and everything's in Rubbermaid bins, you start looking at it and say, well, maybe they don't trust that basement quite as much. But sight, sound, and smell are the big three. I mean, sight, smell, and sound. What you're looking for is to see really, like, what does the basement feel like? Can you see any water entry? What does it look like? You know, every basement generally has a drain. And if any water of amount comes in, it's going for that drain. So we look for dried water marks. We look for everything between the path of the corners of the basement and that drain, things like that. But I mean, trust your nose also. Because you can repaint a basement and cover water entry, but it's very hard to get rid of the smell after years, because that wood and a lot of other things in that basement will hold the smell. And if you have closets, like your sump pump is built into a closet, or if you have a small workshop built off, or they have those little canning little areas, when you open that door, take a whiff before you get a lot of airflow and see if it smells damp or feels damp in those areas, because those are the areas that will dry the slowest. So that's a good way to get that feel of whether or not that basement is experiencing water issues. I don't trust basements, even the best basements. I don't trust them. But I do take care of the factors that I can, especially in my own house, to keep water out of my basement.
What about a sump pump that tends to, like, it just always sounds like it's running? Is that a bad indication, or could just be because of where it's at? Like, well,
it's doing what it's designed to do, which is move the water out. And it depends on how the house was built. And I mean, not necessarily on how the construction was done, but where it was built regarding lowland and water tables and everything else. Right. Some basements are going to constantly flow water through their sump pump because there's a high water table around them. And those people, we strongly recommend they look at a backup sump pump on top of their primary sump pump, because you're really relying on that sump pump to keep the water out of your basement. That is also, though, indicating the system's working, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, the system is working. Now the backup, all it would do is guarantee it keeps working. And there's a few things you can do with backup sump pumps and water alarms and things to make sure that your basement is protected. But some of that stuff is out of your control. I mean, just from where the house was built, if it was built in a lowland area, it's going to have to deal with the water differently than a house that was built on top of a hill.
Right. Excellent. Well, Mike, absolutely loved our conversation. Tell people how to get a hold of you, where to find you.
Okay. Wisconsin Property Inspections, we're a team of 5 home inspectors. We're easily reached. Our phone number is 262-818-1410, 262-818-1410. I want to remind you, in spring, it's a good time to replace your furnace filters. They're needed for the air conditioning in your house. So when you use your furnace all winter long, you're using that filter up. Pull it out, put a new one in, so when you're in the air conditioning season, it flows the way it should. And change the batteries on your smoke detectors and test them. Smoke detectors and CO detectors. If you do that twice a year, spring and fall, both of those things, your house will be a lot happier with you and less likely to break or burn down or anything bad.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate our conversation today.
Have a good day.
Thanks, you too. Thanks.